There's a White House briefing today at 1 p.m. Eastern. It'll be interesting to see how the White House press corps shapes up and how it plays out with Caroline Leavitt, the new White House press secretary. We'll see if they're all in hysterics. There is, to me, it feels like things aren't as chaotic as they were in the first Trump administration. There is a sense of order and discipline and focus and purpose. They are clear-eyed, and they're doing what they're doing without any apologies. And if they stumble, they fix it. Apparently, as part of the new anti-DEI initiatives, they were going to stop teaching about the Tuskegee Airmen at the Naval Academy, and that got changed. Pete Hegseth immediately said, nope, that's a mistake. Don't worry, we'll fix that, and we will continue to teach about the legendary Tuskegee Airmen. So they're not infallible, but they are on a mission. They are on a major mission. And these deportations are resulting in a little bit of chaos. We know about the Selena Gomez video that went viral. The young actress and entrepreneur melted down, sobbing and weeping and crying over her people and the children, and what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And Tom Homan is like, look, we're doing this without apologies. You can't continue to break the law. And you're gonna have to go home. If you've snuck into this country illegally, you got to go home. You got to go back to where you came from and try again legally. And that's a concept that most Americans are quite comfortable with. It's why Donald Trump won, because Democrats failed to understand it. So this Scott Jennings over at CNN continues to do missionary work over there. I mean, they're trying. I think the new president of CNN is saying, look, let's give voices like the voice of Scott Jennings a seat at the table. And he reminded the panel last night that what we're seeing right now with the hundreds, if not thousands, who have already been arrested during these mass deportations, that's what the American people voted for.
The assertion that all American voters did not know exactly what Donald Trump is going to do. Oh, they didn't think it is totally false. There was mass amount of polling during the campaign. Hispanic Americans supported deportations in majority. You and I debated this many times. Yep. You claimed it wasn't true. And then what they do? They went and voted for Donald Trump. The election results are clear. There is no buyer's remorse. The people who followed our laws and came here legally are more than happy to see the laws.
But here,
there is a narrative that folks like these CNN panelists are trying to come up with. All of a sudden, Americans are surprised. Oh, wow, they're actually doing what they said they were going to do. You mean Trump is fulfilling the campaign promise to have the largest mass deportation program in the history of America? He's actually doing it? There's no buyer's remorse. There's buyer's delight. People are ecstatic that we have a president who's fulfilling his promise. That's what people voted for. You think people voted for Donald Trump, who said there'd be a mass deportation from day one, and they said, well, he won't really do it, so I'm going to vote for him, knowing that I know he won't do it, and that's why I'm voting for him? Of course not. And Scott went on to tell the panel, all chirping at him and yelling at him and browbeating him, look, you can berate me all day long. You are never going to change the reality of what the American people voted for.
Tom Homan was on earlier with Caitlin Collins, and he said that they're focused on the most violent criminals. Today, the New York Times story said that half of the people that they arrested today did not have a criminal record. So they are being very indiscriminate. And that, to me, is not something that is a good strategy.
If I may, if you came into the country illegally, you're a criminal. You broke our laws. You knew it when you did it.
The majority of immigrants, that is pretty much the only crime that they've committed, is either entering or re-entering the country. And they've been, you've been living here for like 20, 30 years. You've built businesses, you've built homes, You are part of the fabric of the country. You're part of the community.
Yeah,
and that is not only that affects the immigrant family or the people that are getting their family members supported. That affects all of society. When kids start asking, why hasn't my best friend come back to school? Why is, why did my friend disappear? When businesses start to shutter, when foreclosures start happening.
By the way, no amount of berating me about this is going to change the fact that the American people literally just voted for this.
You're right.
They want the criminals out. They want the violent people out. And there's really not much of a controversy about it.
There was a counter-narrative when Trump bested the president of Colombia. The president of Colombia was initially not going to take the illegals back into Colombia. And Trump said, fine, we'll slap you with a 25% tariff. Okay, we're sorry, Mr. Trump. Yes, we'll send the presidential plane from Colombia to come get them. They completely caved. And goofballs like Ana Navarro and some of these other hysterics on shows like The View said, we're going to have to pay more for coffee. Do you know how much Colombian coffee is going to cost? Greg Gutfeld had the perfect retort to that nonsense over on Fox News.
As for AOC and Ana Navarro, they seem to care more about coffee and flowers than women getting raped. Where is the pro-women? Ana Navarro thinks she's going to get flowers for Valentine's Day. I think not. But the fact that they are arresting rapists and they are worried. I think women would pay 10 cents more for their coffee if they didn't have to worry about getting raped on the subway, you bozos.
He's right. He's right. You're not going to want to pay a little more for Colombian coffee? I think most of our coffee comes from Brazil anyway, but what do I know? I mean, and one more clip before we open it up for you at 800-655-MIKE. And thank you for tuning in. We got a lot to cover today, a lot of breaking news. And in fact, this Brandon Johnson is on the warpath in Chicago, talking about the immigration enforcement actions that are taking place in his city. Look, what do you do when a far-left radical progressive like Brandon Johnson promises to get in the way of federal officials and authorities in taking their deportation actions? I know what you do. You lock up Brandon Johnson. If he's complicit in the lawlessness of illegal immigration, you have to arrest him. And you think that's going to be off the table? Of course not. You don't think Trump is willing to make sure that mayors and governors who are interfering with the lawful effort to deport illegals aren't going to hold them accountable? Of course he is. Hey, J.D. Pritzker or J.B. or whatever your name is, you might wind up in the hoosegow. Brandon Johnson, go down the list. Gavin Newsom. You better think twice. To quote Aretha Franklin, you better think, because you might wind up in a very unpleasant circumstance. Final note, here's Tom Holman, the border czar, reacting to the reports that there's any kind of buyer's remorse from Americans who are shocked and surprised at the mass deportations that are going on right now in America.
I went to Chicago a couple times, met with the black pastors, met with the community. They were begging for ICE enforcement action because of the crime in Chicago. I made a commitment to him that we'd be out there. I also made a commitment to the mayor of Chicago that I'm coming to Chicago, even though he said I wasn't welcomed, and along with Governor Pritzker. And plus, just a few days ago, Pritzker did put on social media that ICE was in an elementary school. I wanted to make a point that ICE is going to do that job regardless if they're going to help us or not. As far as the local community, nothing but cheers walking through the airport, cheers walking through the streets. We stopped at a police station to take a nature break, and we went on the road so long, and every uniform in that building walked up, shook our hands, and thanked us for being there and helping them make their communities more safe.
Wow, and that's the reality. That's the truth, not the Selena Gomez hysteria. The reality is normal people are glad we've got a president and a government finally enforcing the law and making our communities safer. How can anybody dispute that?